Hi, my name is Adeni Adekunle. Thank you once again for tuning in today. A few years ago, I was working in a company as an engineer, and I remember if we had task or whatever to do, we filled a card or a form, we called it work order. They tell you to fill out, or if someone called to come and do something, they had to come with a work order. The department comes to you and say, "Oh, we need you to fix this in our section." They had to come with a work order that was signed, and that word stuck to my mind a few years ago when I began to think about it, that God too actually has a work order. Today I'll be talking about God's work order, God's divine work order for man. And you ask yourself, does God actually have a work order for us? I believe so. We've grown up with the idea that in the world, depending on the country you're living in, maybe a 40-hour-a-week job, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and all that. And I began to ask myself, is there a divine work order in the Bible? Since I know work is something that came from God, I began to search through the Bible to find out if there was a work order, a work pattern in the Bible. And I found something in Exodus 20, we normally call it the 10 Commandments. And one of the commandments is this. He said, I think verse 9 now, he said, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And he says, 6 days you will work and 1 day you will rest. And I felt that nobody will agree with that. We do Monday to Friday, then we rest Saturday and Sunday. So what we've come to know is 5 days you work and 2 days you rest. But God said, listen, 6 days you will work and 1 day you will rest. That's the divine order. I said 6 days you work. 6 days you work. That's what God is talking about. 6 days you work. Then I read the New Testament. In the book of John, Jesus said, I must walk the work of him that sends me while it is day. He said, because the time comes when no man will work. So here is God saying that 6 days you work, 1 day you rest. Jesus comes and says, I must walk the work of him that sent me while it's day. Somewhere again he said there are 12 hours in a day. I think that's in John 11. He said there are 12 hours in a day, and if a man walks in the day, he sees light, but if he walks at night, he stumbles. So juggling all those things together, now this is not a rule, it's just something I try to work with. He says 6 days you work. Jesus said I must work while it's day, and he said there are 12 hours in a day. So it seems to me that what God actually expects us to do is to work about 12 hours a day from the Bible. That's the and when you understand what work is in the mind of God, it's no surprising why he could say there are 12 hours in a day for a man to work. Now don't get it, I'm not saying literally it's a must, but I'm saying if you actually do the work God intends you to do, you find that some of us actually work more than 12 hours. Why? Because you see, if your work is your life's gift, your life's potential, something you enjoy, sometimes we actually do much more than 12 hours a day. Because it's something you enjoy, you do it all the time. You do it without thinking. It's something, like someone says, something they have to pay you to stop doing. Whether they pay you or not, you're doing it. And that's the work order, that you could work 12 hours a day in what God called you for. And he said, you work 12 hours a day, you work 6 days a week, and what that translates to naturally is a productive life. Now, most people cannot do that. Why? Because work is drudgery. Work is painful to them. Work is a curse. They hate it. So why must I spend 12 hours on what I hate? I remember back in those days, we could just sit down and watch movies for hours on end while we enjoyed it. A lot of people have turned what they should call work to a hobby. If your work is something you enjoy, time will go without you knowing. And that's the idea God was pushing. That when God was creating the heaven and the earth, the Bible says, and God created this and the evening and the morning, and it was the first day. So that was how God was working. He was taking a section of the day, and because his work was something he enjoyed, it wasn't draining. When God rested after the work on the 6th day, he wasn't resting because he was all drained and fagged out and could. No, he was also showing us a principle that with work comes rest, that the law of work is actually tied to the work of rest, because rest recuperates you, refreshes you to help you work better. We are going to be productive as human beings, particularly those of us in in sub-Saharan Africa, and maybe Africa generally, we must change our mindset to work. We must give time to work. Overseas, there's a work culture where there's the hourly job. They don't pay you because you show up at work for a day. You clock in. What do you do for 1 hour? If you're not effective, then you're gone. And if we plan ourselves that way, 12 hours a day, how effective are you within those 12 hours? It begins to change our level of productivity and effectiveness. That's the principle I saw in the Bible, that you go to work, you give yourself to your work 12 hours a day for 6 days, and you rest on the Sabbath. Now, there are so many, I read the story of a young man who went to interview this farmer, very, very successful farmer. So he walked up to meet him on his farm and he said, what time do you go to work? And the farmer's answer was wonderful. The farmer says, I don't go to work. There's work everywhere around me. What was the old farmer trying to say? He was saying, listen, I found my life's work. I don't go to work. Work is everywhere around me. Now, for someone like that, making 12 hours a day is not a problem. For someone like that, making 6 days a week work is not a problem. Now, they normally give, I'm not too sure now, that depending on the company you're working for, leave of about 13 days, 21 days, 29 days, and all that. But if you actually follow God's order, you rest 1 day a week. That means in a year of 52 weeks, you have actually 52 days of rest. So it's even more effective than the system we work by today. You see, I believe that if we work the way God intended us to work, I believe our nations will be more productive, our lives will be more productive, everybody will have more than enough to live on, and the world will become a better place. Every time man goes against God's prescribed order, there is always a shortfall. The reason why people are breaking down in their health, even after working 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, is because the work the so-called thing we call work is working against us. It's destroying our body, it's destroying our health, it's destroying our family and all that. So we are beginning to talk about work-life balance and all those things. But the truth is this: when we get into that flow of work, there is balance everywhere in our life. There's a balance with your family, there's a balance with your work with God, there's a balance with your health, there's a balance with everything. So this is the rule from the Bible. 6 days you work, 1 day you rest. And Jesus said, a man works 12 hours a day. Now you ask yourself, can you actually do that? And if you honestly cannot say that with the work you are doing now, or what you call your job now, you might need to begin to reconsider what you're doing. I'm not saying leave it, but just reconsider and see whether what you're actually doing is the work God intended, or something you're just doing to make a living. Thank you very much for your time again, and God bless you.